Salutations! Welcome to Learning the Language of Literacy. My name is Sophia Lee, and I'll be discussing 10 Tiny Breasts by T.K. Tucker. This book follows 20-year-old Casey Cleary, who's packed up herself and her 15-year-old sister Livy from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and moved them all of a sudden to Miami because she's trying to run away from her constricting grandparents as well as the PTSD she contracted 4 years ago after a traumatic incident. Immediately when she arrives in Miami, she meets this mysterious kind of bad boy, Trent Emerson, who becomes basically just fixated and obsessed with her, as well as just getting to know her and befriending her, and she, on the other hand, is not averse to his affections. It was an enjoyable new adult novel, nothing particularly special, but it most definitely wasn't disappointing. I got exactly what I wanted out of it, which was an entertaining time. In the genre of new adult, this book has received lots of praise and recognition on the same level as people like Cora Carmack, Jamie McGuire, Colleen Hoover, and all of the other new adult writers that we all know and love. It has a 4.18 Goodreads rating, and considering its target demographic and exactly what the story is trying to tell, this book is exactly what it set out to be. Before I get into the story more and what it was about, I want to just talk a little bit quickly about new adult mediocrity, because I gave 10 Tiny Breasts a 75%, 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, mostly because it did not wow me away, and that is the thing. There are people like Colleen Hoover. I don't know what it is. Everyone on BookTube can agree with me is that Colleen Hoover just blows you away completely with her vivid storytelling, her amazing writing style, and just the characters that suck you in, and somehow, no matter what the situation, no matter what's going on, they just are relatable to you, and you find connections with them in your own life, even if it is a completely different romantic situation, or even a living situation that you never would imagine yourself in. She somehow just brings it all together and makes it a very fun time that you genuinely feel attached to. My problem with a lot of new adult novels, I've noticed this with 10 Tiny Breasts, as well as Cora Carmack, as well as just some of the other new adult novels that I've consumed, is just the fact that I'm not wowed by anything. You don't read a new adult for the amazing, wonderful, intricate, eloquent, articulate writing style. You don't read it for the well-developed, fleshed out characters. You don't read it for the world building by any means. You read it to be satisfied, enjoyed, and to have a quick, fun read. And that's the thing, is that if you get tired of that, or maybe if you want to get out of reading something but you're not entirely in the mood for that, it's very hindering to your enjoyment overall. And because of Colleen Hoover, I probably would never even touch the rest of the books in the new adult genre in general. And because of her as well, she is basically the bar, and anything that comes remotely close to it is something that I just gobble up. The only person I've really ever come close to Colleen Hoover and qualities of enticement has been Amber Lynn, who wrote How to Say Goodbye. I love that new adult novel. It gave me chills several points where I was reading it. I highly recommend it. Something worth mentioning, this is a 5 companion novel series as well as a pretty long prequel novella. So overall, you start off with the whole story following Trent and Casey's love story, and then in the prequel you follow Trent. According to the author's note, you probably should read 10 Tiny Breasts before you read the prequel novella, just so that you see where he's coming from, and so that he doesn't seem a complete jerk if you actually read the prequel novella. And of course, that's the whole point, is that that this character has progressed and changed. And that's the one thing I do commend about new adult, is that no matter what, the characters always seem to change, mostly because of some instigating factor that happened previously in the characters' stories that made them get to this place where they're weak or volatile, or even just very hardened and not accepting of everyone else in the world because of everything that's come up to that point. Just a little heads up, the characters that the companion novels follow are Kane, with a love interest that he develops throughout his job as the manager of Penny's, as well as Dan and Storm, who are very cute together in my opinion, and then Livy, and then someone that she finds when she's at Princeton. Then there's also Ben and a love interest he finds. Just a warning to you, I did not like Ben's character whatsoever in 10 Tiny Breasts. I felt that he was pretty much unneeded, and when he was slightly needed to kind of maybe improve or impact a scene, I think that he easily could have been replaced by some other kind of force or some other character, because frankly, he was just a douche in my mind and I did not like him at all. My issue now is that I'm not quite sure whether it's worth the time or the effort to read the other books in this series, just because, again, it was 3.5 out of 5 stars. I was not in love with this, and I'm not sure I should just take the time. But again, I could change my mind. If I'm in the mood for K-Tuck, I will consider picking up her other books. Just to wrap up the non-spoilery section, I want to say that if you have read any of Colleen Hoover's novels, the ending of 10 Tiny Breasts is extremely Colleen Hoover. I've read every single Colleen Hoover novel except for her newest one, November 9, and with that I know that the exact ending and twist and the disaster in 10 Tiny Breasts happens pretty much verbatim to one of Colleen Hoover's novels. So I just want to mention that, and if you haven't read Colleen Hoover, I have no idea who she is, then have fun reading 10 Tiny Breasts. I would highly recommend 10 Tiny Breasts if you love new adult, if you're looking for something quick, fast, and easy to get you out of a reading slump, and just a very nice romance, and kind of, I don't know what the word is, maybe untraditional for normal circumstances following new adult. Anyways, if you haven't read this novel, come back later when you have and we can discuss it. Bye non-spoiler people. Hey, what's up? Hello. In terms of my spoiler thoughts and discussion points I want to bring up with you, I'm just going to go character by character as well as some of the matters that were addressed throughout the novel. The first thing I want to say for Casey is that even though kickboxing was obviously used as a point of avoidance as well as something to take your stress and energy out on, I do think that in a maybe a more contained version, or even just in the same level as what she was doing it, that it was okay for her. I've been through things in my life, and on top of that, I am a runner, and I know how good it feels to release all of your pent-up energy and anxiety and all your emotions when you're exercising and pushing your body to the limit, and maybe kickboxing wouldn't be the way to do it just because of its aggressive connotation, but definitely some sort of exercise would be good. Moving on, she seemed extremely unrelenting, but also in a very ambiguous way that made it confusing at times because she was always so adamant about not letting anyone break through her shell, but then the small little dots didn't connect between why Trent was so much her undoing and was the one person, even more so a little bit than her sister, or just all the pent-up baggage she had following her. It seemed a bit unrealistic. While it could have made sense and the way she explained it made sense, I myself as a reader did not feel what I should have for their relationship and for her as a character. In terms of Trent, he is not your classic new adult male character because all the time, and I do mean every single new adult novel I've ever read, the guy is completely 100% swoon-worthy. And when I say that, I don't mean just in described looks, but I mean in his mannerisms, in his dialogue, in his enticing way that he basically seduces readers through the page. That is what new adult males are supposed to do. That is like their one job that they should carry it out. And I did not actually feel that for Trent whatsoever. So in some sections of the book, just like Casey, he seemed just too ambiguous, and because he was keeping his secret, we just never knew what was going on inside of his head. And he was never very open with sharing his emotions and his feelings in general. In novels in general, we always need as readers the one light point, the one humorous point, the one thing that makes even a pretty dark tale somewhat positive and just some kind of thing to root for throughout the novel. So much like a lot of other new adult novels, it was the little kid, Mia. I loved Storm's daughter. She was just so bright. And I love that one scene, you know what I'm talking about, when Trent was like, well, I heard Princess Mia was here and I know she likes ice cream, right? Every kid likes ice cream. I've never met a single person who hasn't loved ice cream. So that was just perfect. And I thought that was so adorable. And I love the way that despite both Casey's and Storm's professions working in Penny's nightclub, Storm was determined to keep her daughter out of the scene and just keep her as protected as possible and provide all the opportunities that she knows her daughter does deserve. In terms of Livy as a character, I felt that she was way too nice for the majority of the story, and that blow-up that she had at Casey in the actual hospital in Chicago was so long overdue. When Livy finally blew up, I was like, oh my god, she's so right. We've been going on and on and on about Casey, but we haven't ever pay attention to Livy because she always seems to be better off, she always seems to be nicer, and she wasn't in the car and she wasn't to blame. I really liked how we finally got that bit of strength from her, but at the same time I felt she was a pretty shallow character. In terms of Storm's character, I did enjoy her and I thought she was a very good addition to the story, as well as just a solid female friend. It's something constant for Casey to hang on to. But at the same time, I was very confused with some of the situational events that happened because of her. For example, when Mia and Livy were at home and then Storm's ex-husband came in, it seemed so out of place and it seemed so sudden, and it didn't even seem like something to push the story along. It just seemed completely out of the blue, and I was like, what the frick is happening right now? And the one scene in Penny's nightclub when there was the attempt on her life, it came out of completely nowhere, and we actually never got an answer as to why anyone was attempting her life. I mean, of course, it could just be like, oh, she's a stripper and she's really pretty, why don't we kill this woman? But at the same time, we didn't even get that simple, very flimsy explanation, so I don't understand. Then there's Cain. If there are any of the companion novels I actually want to read, it is Cain. I didn't realize that Cain was only 29 in the story. I thought he was like an old sleazy guy, but gradually we learned that that's a stereotype, at least in this case, and that he was such a compassionate person. And even though he owned a freaking gentleman's club, he was still such a good boss, and he was so kind to his workers, and he never made passes on them. And in terms of being a strip club, it was the best strip club you possibly could have been employed in. I'm not quite comfortable with this word, but it's the only one I can come up with at the moment. But the most offensive thing in the entire story was the way that they portrayed PTSD, because the effects didn't seem that respectful to people who are reading who may have PTSD, as well as the doctor's just very unconventional methods. And I just feel, by just common sense as a human being, that his methods were wrong and they were inhumane and very unsettling for me. Like, if I ever got PTSD and was treated by a doctor of that caliber, I would just be very freaked out, because he did not seem to know what he was talking about. And it didn't seem very realistic also. And on the whole hot topic social issues, there was a very strong focus on abuse in terms of Storm and her ex-husband and just the overall abuse of life and bad people in general. And again, something was slightly off about it. I can't actually put my finger on it, but I felt it was disrespectful and very ineffective the way it was used. In this story, there were so many unrealistic roles the characters played, as well as the premises and situations. For example, the dad. Oh my god, is he Mr. Moneybags or something? Because I did not understand how he funded so much and how he didn't try any harder. I mean, I get it, there was a restraining order filed against him, but he didn't do a single thing to help, and he was still in the same mindset of wanting to help once he realized that his son went off the edge and creating a relationship with Casey. And we gotta remember that Trent killed her basically entire family in that one night, and it was so frustrating to me and just unrealistic how the dad just handed everything over and was like, here, I'm gonna pay for all of your rehab. That's the thing about new adult as well, is that I can deal with unrealistic in new adult, in realistic fiction, in fantasy, as long as I feel that it is justified and as long as I feel that it makes just common sense. And then let's move on to Trent's obsession. I thought it was so incohesive with the rest of the story. And yes, I understand that she needed an explanation for why Trent was the way he was, but at the same time, like, what was with that? Like, what human thinks that he can make this girl happy after he's killed her family and that's gonna make everything alright? Like, that doesn't make sense at all to me personally. And like, just why, K.A. Tucker, did you come up with all of these really just random things? Like, did you draw them out of a hat or something and say, here, this is my reason for this character being so whacked up? Because of the many inconsistencies that I found with the writing style and the characters and the situation in general, it felt very much like a Wattpad story, and it just skipped around from place to place. The last point I want to bring up is that 10 Tiny Breasts really capitalized on the broken person noodle trope. And I know in some very special cases that a person could forgive someone else just because of how much they feel like they need that other person in their life and what they do for them. But it wasn't fully explained exactly what it was about Trent that made Casey need him so much. And I just felt it was so unforgivable, because not only did Trent destroy her life and give her PTSD, he killed her mom, her dad, her best friend, and her boyfriend at the time, and made her just very traumatized and a shell to the entire world for 4 freaking years. And even though she got the help that she needed, it felt like it was a little bit too late, and just the whole situation of it was so messed up. He played so many mind games with her, because I know that he had to go away and go back to New York to try to convince his parents he was still in his mind, which he totally wasn't, but he just abandoned her cold turkey, did not talk to her for, what was it, 3 weeks or even 5 or something crazy like that. Now, I know if you really love each other, that wouldn't be that much of a big deal. I mean, you're on the Snow White and Prince Charming, but at the same time, this is not Snow White and Prince Charming. This is a new adult novel. This is a person who was using this other person for sex, and just, what was that? Tell me in the comments below what you thought of this novel, what you think of all the tropes that this used, how it relied on them as well, what you think of new adult in general, and how that impacts your reading experience as well as your rating and overall opinion of the novel. I'm done with this video. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Keep calm, read on, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, give it a big thumbs up and leave me a comment below. If you'd like to do more, hit the subscribe button. All my social media is my face at SSLsBooks, and my previous videos are below me.